select the sidebar view. You can access that by clicking the three dots on the bottom right-hand bar, clicking Change Layout, and then selecting Sidebar, which is the last option. And we're currently viewing Emmanuel's screen, and I think he's about to launch the event.
Last question, are you recording?
Was waiting for the green light to do that. I will start recording. Everybody should have seen in the email that we will be recording this event. If you stay on mute and keep your camera off, only your name will be shown, but just want to let everybody know we will start recording just a moment.
I say let's go for it. Gee, I need a last. There it is. All right, welcome everybody. This is now the third session for our Sankofa Living Memories heuristic experiment live broadcast from everywhere. We are currently at the Sweetwater Commonwealth. We call it the Commonwealth, about this collective wealth. I'm currently on the farm, at the community farm, but I want to give a quick context of where we're at. Well, you know, most people think of urban farming in a neighborhood, and they think about, like, how do you remember what was even in that neighborhood over decades? So what's on the screen currently is a view from, I think it was 2011. There used to be a school on this site, but when that school was demolished, it left a hole. It left a hole on the block, but it left a hole in the neighborhood, but it left a hole in the memories of people who said, what was there? What used to be there? What will be there? So this was about a 2-acre site that, with the adjacent housing also in various stages of closure, foreclosure, development on its decline. 2012, a number of conversations happened with the city about moving forward with a pretty radical idea about transforming with a farm in the neighborhood, but we took it further. We said, well, we have the house and the Think Do house. We can create a park, a little mini park outside of the Think Do house with a public garden. Greenhouses that we can have as wood shops and workshops. And this is typically what people think about when you think of a farm, but most people don't even have a visual image of what it means to be in a neighborhood, let alone in South Side Chicago and Washington Park, Inglewood, and touching the surrounding neighborhood. So we created a farm in context of the neighborhood for healing. And in many ways, that is in and of itself, like when you think about food as medicine, it's not about what you just eat. It's about the processes. It's the natural ecological conditions, the soil, the labor, the work, the relationships. So in the Commonwealth, we have 4 contiguous city blocks and expanding. And we say that we're an ecological community. We have different installations in urban acupuncture that says, well, we do one over there and we try that over there, but it's all connected. So we do a mix between art, architecture, as urban ecology, where our real world education and workforce development and art and experiment come from our lived experiences of sharing and networking and like seeding the future with our youth. These are all images of the summer. These are, of course, that was pre-COVID. This is once COVID was in our world. we mask up, but during our markets, we have drumming right outside of our markets. We have gathering spaces, and it's a way to connect and reconnect over and over again. So we have 2-acre site with the thought barn as a central space as a pavilion for people to gather. This is the summer. But what happens when it's the winter? We prepared our hoop houses. We planted in the fall. We started to cultivate. And so now I'm going to stop sharing. And so here we are. And Gia, quick audio confirmation. You're seeing me now in live in context?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. So here we are in the hoop house where I'm going to get the quick reverse. All that snow that dumped. All of that water that has fallen. It's still nourishing we're still nourishing our produce. So for the sake of it today, we're going to talk about food as medicine and how we are actually still growing year round, despite the polar vortexes. And we're harvesting year round. Oh, 1 second. My mic back. All right. So I'm going to take you on a quick walk through. Close this up. All right. This is our everyday. Got water catchment systems collecting the water even when it's. Now, this is just a reminder. We're in the neighborhood. Across the street is the Think Do house. Passing the Thought Barn, where we host shows on a regular engagement. Now, I'm gonna flip my screen. So it's critical and super important for people to understand that like food as medicine is part of our aspect of regeneration. Because we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about the future. So even though the beds are covered with snow, we're indoors planting seeds for the future. We're still in the workshop, still working. Just quick little walking tour. The line of cars is the team, the Sweetwater team, and the fellows and the apprentices. Meeting house, which is also a public community greenhouse, but we also have it as a social distant market space that we're dreaming about. The reconstruction house, a public neighborhood community art gallery space where we host demonstrations, gatherings, and workshops. And then here we go. As an art gallery and reflection and memory. So, are you there?
I am.
So I'm going to put myself on mute. And if you could talk about your connection with us, we're going to start off a dialogue around the concept of food as medicine. While I give these, this is Rhonda, artist Rhonda Long. Some of her work, that's coffee, Warren.
Oh, good. Wow.
Coffee as a medium. But can you introduce yourself briefly about our connection and why we're connected through food as medicine?
Sure. I'm Orrin Williams. Currently, I am
why we're connected through food is medicine.
Okay.
Sure, I'm Warren Williams. Currently,
I don't know something's going on with the audio, but anyway.
So
Can you hear me?
I think we need Lydia to not present her screen right now.
Yeah, you're hearing my voice, but it's not in real time.
You're good now, Warren. It's good now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm Warren Williams. I'm Food Systems Coordinator for Chicago Partnership for Health Promotion, program out of the Office of Community Engagement and Neighborhood Health Partnerships at UIC. I got connected with Emmanuel. Jeez, I don't even remember how long ago now. Probably 10 years ago or so, when I was still working at Growing Home.
It was about 10 years, man. It's been a decade.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of conversations and been connected through his journey, and we have similar journeys. So, the food is medicine piece, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but in terms of performance, the need for high quality food is imperative. And Emmanuel mentioned it earlier. And I'll be real simple. We wrote, before I even met Emmanuel, that a community is an ecosystem, and the inhabitants of any ecosystem are only as healthy as the nutrient flows into that system. So if the food supply is degraded or the water supply is degraded, then the health of the inhabitants of that system cannot be optimal. In order to have optimal health in any ecosystem, you have to have positive, high quality nutrient flows. That's how organisms flourish. So I hope I kicked it off well.
All right. Candace.
Yes, sir.
Can you share an intro of who you are as well? Because I don't know, Orrin, have you met? Because y'all might have met at the farmers market when we did our markets.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Share an intro of who you are as well. Because I don't know, Orrin, have you met? Because y'all might have met at the farmers market when we did our markets.
My regular everyday life, I am the I'm chief not of staff sure. of all the Well, but I'm Candace somebody Castillo. who is really In passionate. my regular everyday life, I am the chief of staff to Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor. But I am somebody who is really passionate about food, and I'm a vegan at this time. But so fruits and vegetables and the ecosystem of the food around us makes all the difference in the world to me.
It's interesting because we met. I'm gonna stand right here. Right? Am I in the shot? Yeah. Cool. So we first met. How did we meet?
At farmers market, actually. So um, I am addicted to farmers markets. I'm always going to the farmers market. And this is actually right behind the 20th Ward office. Sweetwater's right behind the office.
Right.
So I stopped over here and I was like, great. Now I come back all the time. And in fact, the artist you just mentioned whose artwork is in the front is my mom, Rhonda Long.
Absolutely. And you brought her to the market to meet us because it wasn't just about the food, it was also about the art as well.
It was about the art as well. It was about the woodwork, actually, that I first fell in love with. I thought it was amazing. Then I came into the house and I further thought that the work in the house was amazing. And I just really wanted her to see it. Now she's here more than I am.
But Orrin, this kind of like highlights the challenges, the complexities and opportunities of this work, right? Because in COVID, we kind of have to adjust and adapt. And
for whatever reason, I mean, nature's got all of the source right that we need right at our fingertips, but we don't have the systems and designs that really respect how food is central to our connection, let alone all of our medicine and nourishment. So if you could you share a little bit, Oren, about your overarching connection to food as medicine in terms of education and as tied to kind of like Sankofa, reach past to be present to move future.
Yeah, well, it's essential for the human condition, if you will. And if you look from a Sankofa perspective or retrospectively, the connection to food and human survival is tantamount. We would not be here without connection to plants. And plants, as much as they are food, they're also medicine from an herbal perspective and again from a quality perspective. So the human enterprise has always been about the pursuit of food. If you look around the planet through YouTube or whatever the case may be, you can find videos from all over the planet about how people are in pursuit of food every day. It's essential. And also you may note that in different places around the planet, the disease states that are most problematic are communicable or infectious diseases rather than the chronic diseases we see. And one reason for that is people, if they have access to food, and that's dependent upon a lot of factors, such as drought or floods or whatever the case may be. East Africa, I think it was last year, a couple of years ago, they had an influx of locusts. So that presented a problem. So we've always been in relationship to other entities in the ecosystem, but also with food. So, you know, going back to ancient Egypt or Greece or whatever the case may be, Hippocrates noted, and certainly other folks like Imhotep have noticed that food is indeed medicine and essential to our health and well-being as a species, as it is to other species as well.
So one of the pieces that we have on, I'm back outside just to moderate and like that, the delay. How's our back and forth is less delayed right now, Oren?
Is it what?
Less delayed?
Oh yeah, right, it's good now.
Okay, cool. So we're trying an experiment of live streaming with like 4 different cameras. We're using Google Meet and Twitch and all this other stuff. So there's all this one big heuristic. And so for the sake of this dialogue, Stephen Haynes, you still there?
I'm here.
So, you know, the previous sessions we had with Miss Irma, or even last week when we were having with Angela Ford around archival work and the importance of like remembering.
Mm-hmm.
Food is playing a central role for us to remember. Now, like when I say that, it's just not just remembering in our cognitive processes, it's also how do we as humans interface like Sabona. We see you, I see you, you see us, we recognize each other in order to move into the future. So like what I mentioned when I was walking through the snow, I can't help but think about the spring and think about Juneteenth celebration in the summer. And then think about an appreciation, a deep appreciation of our elders that have traveled through the Great Migration, right? So what does living memory and food as medicine mean to you? And you should, just for the sake of introducing everybody, you probably should do this as well.
Yeah, my name is Stephen Haynes. I'm a professor at DePaul University. And one of the things that I'm interested in is the idea of and practice of living memory. And some of the things we talked about last week that I think is important for our conversation now is the idea of living memory as doing. And And I'd like to start off with one example. And I use the same example. It's the collard greens. It's the collard greens in the pot, right? Thinking about enslaved ancestors. Thinking about making do with what they had. An old pot. Putting those greens in the pot. Putting that piece of meat in the pot. Thinking about folks gathered around. Kin, fictive kin. Talking about the day. Telling stories, maybe. And thinking about, at that moment, what's something that is just done in everyday life becomes part of a way of remembering. Remembering relationships. And if you zoom back to today, or at least when I was growing up, the pot and the greens in the pot and the meat in the pot, everyone in the kitchen, people talking, having conversation, laughing, smiling, and then eating the greens and all the relationships and all the stories told prior when people gathered around the pot. That was about convivial relations. And by that I mean relations of care and connection. But we can think about, when we talk about medicine, actually, the etymology of the word links up to another word, the art of healing. So the food, the relationship we have with the food, the collard greens, triggers memory. Triggers a memory of intergenerational memory that's passed on.
It was almost as if you had just, like, there's a synchronicity to this. Mama Jocelyn, you just joined in. You there, Mama Jocelyn?
I'm sorry, I'm actually on my phone, and so I'm not as fancy.
It's all right. It's just, it was like a quick call and response thing, because Stephen Haynes from DePaul had just mentioned about this other form of food as medicine across generations, and we shared our Seeding the Future conversation with your students yesterday. Can you briefly tell who you are and why that concept of food as medicine and the concept of education tied to all this is so important to you?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Mills, and I am the principal of Barbara A. Sizemore Academy, which is a school that is on 65th and Stewart, of course, in Inglewood. Part of why the concept of food is medicine is so important to us is because my school is a vegetarian school. And we serve fresh fruits and vegetables to our students every day. The students actually have a blessing that they say where at the end of it, they say, eat your salad first. As a concept of making sure that they know that they are feeding their bodies, minds, and spirits. And of course, it is an interesting experience to have a vegetarian school from the standpoint that there are parents who do push back on the concept that their children need bologna or hot dogs or hamburgers. But I simply just tell them that the most loving and kind thing that I can do for their children is to give them fruits and vegetables. That kind of wins them over. So the same students that parents feel like can't live without bologna, eat broccolini and star fruit, and are very happy to do so. So it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And then how this conversation and dialogue is weaving together. We're just setting the stage for how multifaceted and how layered this topic is. I mean, our memory. I mean, I was walking around while Stephen was giving his recap and while Oren was giving his recap. I can't help but walk around the neighborhood and remember. Like I remember what it used to be. I know where it is going with the team, with the neighbors, with the residents, with thinking and excitement about next year. And then so one of the things we're trying to do today, I'm gonna go back inside, is talk about, we have produce and we can do this cooking demo. You ready? Yeah. You get the door for me.
So what we're making today is something that is, so I lived in New Orleans for 5 years. New Orleans is still one of my favorite places in the world. And they make lots of gumbos. Everybody thinks of gumbo as being two things, either gumbo with meat in it, with sausage, andouille sausage, or tazo ham and chicken and things of that nature, or it's seafood, shrimp, crab. But in New Orleans, that's not all they do. So they do something called gumbo zob. And gumbo zob is gumbo zerb, and it's green. Now, Dookie Chase, the restaurant Lila Chase, has been making gumbo zob for years, except they do it with a tazo ham. This version is a vegan version. So we got kale, we got collards, we have mustards, spicy mustards and red mustards.
And for those who just tuned in a little late, where is that produce coming from?
It's coming straight from Sweetwater Farms. It's coming from the hoop house where things are still growing in the snow.
Right across the street.
Right across the street. And we have spinach. So the rule with gumbo zob is you want an odd number of greens. For whatever reasons, it's luck. And this is the first Friday during the Lent season, during the Catholic holiday. And as you know, Chicago and New Orleans are big Catholic cities. So this is traditionally served either during the week leading up to Easter or on those Fridays where they weren't eating meat. It was just fish. In a way that we are not putting any of the ham in it, bacon in it. So we also have our green bell pepper and our onion that's gonna go in here. We usually like to put fresh garlic, but we're gonna be using granulated garlic today. Now, here's the cool thing about the pepper. We're gonna use it in our food, and then we're gonna use it again when we plant it. And here are the seeds for the pepper. And these seeds then go right back out there, and we get it right back. When bell peppers in season?
This summer.
This summer. So
when you cut that open, I'm gonna and the cut, because we can replant both of those, the onion and the peppers.
So why don't you talk about it now?
Okay. Can you do me a favor then? Can you cut that open? Can you see this? Go ahead. Yeah, I want to see if they can see it.
Can you see it? Here, let me move this.
A common misconception is that, a lot of people will prepare food and cut open the pepper. What's the first thing you see inside? Can you slice it the long way?
This way?
Or however you want to, yeah. Nah, right down the middle so you can see it.
Oh.
Hey, I just do it like this. That's fine, I got it. A lot of times people will throw that away. Can you see? Can we see it? Oh wait, I see it. I'm looking and trying to.
Come back a little.
How about her?
Yeah. This is the brainchild.
There you go.
This is the main nervous system, and what we did was we took all the little seeds from here, put it in the bowl, so when comes harvest time, planting season and harvest time, we can replant those things. What about the onion, Emmanuel?
So, if you cut the bottom part off, a lot of people don't understand. I just need a dish. I'm gonna put a little bit of water. I'll put a little bit of water in it.
Mm-hmm.
Drop it in there
Which side up?
with the seed, with the roots on the bottom.
Remember, these aren't just little hair things. These are roots.
You drop it in there, and then these shoots will start to come up out of it. And then you'll be able to plant this back into the soil. And then you'll have peppers. On average, you have about 200 pepper seeds that come out of a plant. We'll have peppers, and then we'll have onions. You can also do it with lettuce. You can do it with carrots. You can do it with beets. You can do it all types of stuff. Most people throw that away.
And if you're like me and you don't particularly have a green thumb and you start planting things and you are that great at it, you could save all of this type of stuff and you can make a delicious vegetable stock with it. Now, for the purpose of this recipe, I won't be using homemade stock, but you can use vegetable stock with it. So the first thing that we need to do in this particular recipe is we need to do something that we like to call roux. In New Orleans, they say, how's your mama and can you roux? So in this case, is the camera from over?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the camera up here. So in this case, you want a nice peanut butter color roux. So it's not too dark, it's not too light. It's just a nice peanut butter color. This has been cooking, so it's the right color, it's the right consistency. While you roux, you want to get you a cup of tea, a cup of wine, something, and just keep stirring. That's the thing about a roux, you just got to keep stirring it. So we've already cut up our bell peppers, and we've already cut up our onions. Now, what I like to do is I like to blanch, ooh, this bowl is heavy. I like to blanch our greens just to make it easier to go. You don't want to cook out all the nutrients, but you do want to make them a little soft. So now that the oil in the roux is ready, you just want to, because this has just been waiting for me to get here, you want to go ahead and you want to put your onions in. And then you want to go ahead and put your bell peppers in. And you want to just go ahead and let these saute down until they get soft. Now what I like to do is also go in with my seasoning at this point, because it gives your seasoning a chance to fry up with all of these good vegetables. So you want to fully incorporate it in the roux.
So Candace, while you're doing that, I smell it.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't really appreciate how those smells help you remember. They condition you to be excited about, ooh, my mouth's starting to water a little bit. I'm excited about the taste. And I'm also remembering the past while I'm excited about the future. I want to taste that.
I get excited when I smell food, when I hear food. It's something about hearing food, when you know that when you hear the water boil or something fry up a little, it's something about hearing food. So we have some thyme and some oregano that were grown out there that we're going to go ahead and throw in here for another dimension of flavor. This is not the dried stuff, as you can see, it's very fresh. And if you get pretty close to it, you can smell it. I can smell it from here. So you just kind of want to pull it back a little. All of these things have been washed already. The good thing I love about cooking meatless is you don't need a whole bunch of cutting boards or utensils or anything. No worry about salmonella poisoning or anything like that when you're working with all vegetables, as long as they're cleaned properly. All of the veggies we're using have been washed and cleaned properly. So most people will ask, well, Candace, how do you root? All a root is a simple gravy that is flour and oil. You want to use equal parts flour and oil, and depending on what you're making, it will be darker or lighter. Some roots are really dark, really rich. It brings out a nuttiness in the flour, and you can smell it. That's what you smell, the nuttiness in the flour. So Candace, what does like the nuttiness in the flour? Well, I don't eat white flour. Can I use any other flour? Yeah, you can use other flours, but those other flours will bring out a different kind of nuttiness. So in my spice mixture that we're using, we have some cayenne pepper, salt, regular pepper, paprika, a little bit of chili powder, cumin, coriander.
Almost all of that we grow.
Oh, fresh. Next time I'll know that. So, because I don't think they grow salt, but almost all of that we use fresh, and I like using it fresh. But for this one, it's something about the mixture that gives it that real spice. I like things with the kick, and gives it that New Orleans flair. So we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit more in here. Now, you hear it, you smell it, everything's getting nice and incorporated. Let's add my garlic in 2 parts, so you definitely get the garlic flavor. I'm going to add it, fry it up a little, and add it in the beginning. And then I'm going to add a little bit more in the end when I add my grills. So as this is getting a little bit more translucent, we're going to go ahead and add our greens. This bowl is super heavy. So when I lived in New Orleans, I stopped eating pork or beef at 18, and I just ate a whole lot of chicken and fish. And I was like, okay, New Orleans is a good place for this because chicken and fish is always on the menu. But chicken or fish is always on the menu, but honestly, it's usually with a pork broth or a beef broth. So I stayed away from it. And this particular recipe, the best cook I've ever known, sorry, Mom, it's not you. I mean, you're come close, but it's a young lady in New Orleans named Grace Lamba that I worked with at United Teachers of New Orleans. Is the person that taught me how to make red beans and rice New Orleans style. My first pot of etouffee, the gumbo zab, regular gumbo, even turkey necks, because I ate them then. It's something that she taught me how to make. And she did a darn good job. And people in New Orleans are just regimented eaters. Every Monday is red beans and rice. Turkey necks, they eat on a regiment. And still, I find myself going into that regimen at times. Now, if we ever do this again, I'll show you all how to make. I'll show you all how to make smothered king oyster mushrooms instead of the turkey necks. Okay, so everything is melding together. I'm going to turn this up.
Question.
Yes.
How long does that take? The whole process?
This whole process might take 45 minutes.
Okay.
The roux is a process that takes the longest because you're just stirring. Now, Candace, I don't like vegetable oil. I don't like those type of oils. A way that you can cheat that is you put the flour in the oven and you just let it, sit and get some of that richness and that nuttiness out in the oven, and then put it in, and then stir it with some oil. You're gonna have to use some oil. So if you don't want to use those things, you can get away with it. So this is marrying up pretty good.
It smells great, even through the mask.
Through the mask.
I'm double masked.
We're so black people. We in certain regions, we're just so used to eating regular greens, and I love fresh greens. I love to eat them raw, but I love soup, and I hate cold, and it's really cold with a lot of snow. So I don't want anything cold. I don't want a spring roll wrap. I don't want a salad. I want something hot and hearty.
So I'm gonna show this, right? Most of the time when people think of these produce, they think of just a salad.
Yep.
You don't think of a hot meal. And what's beautiful about this is you can do the cold and the hot as you need. And in the summer, we hit a smoothie. We'll have the little apple or the fruits mixed in with the spinach, and we'll have a green smoothie. So this is all year round. And so again, how much more time do you need? Because I might bring in some folks to dialogue and give some feedback. How much more time do you want here?
Bring in some folks to dialogue and give some feedback.
Okay. I'm gonna talk to some folks just to get feedback. I'll step out.
So real quick, I'm gonna start the process of adding the water into this while he's going to get a few people to dialogue with. So I told you this time we are not using homemade stock. This is a vegetable stock. You can buy it in the local grocery stores. I like using it because the paste is more potent than the stuff in the jar, the box stuff. So I prefer to make my own, but in a pinch on a weeknight, this is great. So we're gonna put the water in. Oh, I'm spilling water everywhere.
That's all right.
Obviously, this is not the cooking network.
This is better.
So we just want to stir it up, and we're gonna let these greens continue to cook down. I'm gonna go ahead and put some more water in here. And for a lot of people, when I made the decision to stop eating meat, it wasn't because I had a health concern or anything like that. When I first stopped eating pork and beef, it was off of a bet. My mother, my mother's secretary didn't eat beef or pork. She worked at DePaul at the time. And this young lady was a Muslim. And she was like, I bet your body is so conditioned to pork, you can't stop eating it. I'm a broke college student. She said, I bet you $100 you can't stop eating it. I was like, I'll take that bet. 3 months, triple or nothing. I'll give you $350 if you stop eating pork. Fine. I took that bet. 3 months. I tried to eat that first ham sandwich afterwards and was the sickest person in the world. And just chose not to reintroduce. Okay, I don't eat pork. So a couple years ago, I was dealing with heartburn. If you know me, then you know I love coffee. So I was drinking all the coffee in the world and drinking wine and eating a whole lot of chicken and duck and turkey. And I had this heartburn I couldn't shake. So I was watching this lady on TV. She said, slowly take everything out of your diet and slowly put it back in and see what's causing you problems. And I did that in January. And I wasn't eating cooked food at first. So you know what I couldn't have? Soup. You know what I was upset about? Me not eating soup. And I tried to reintroduce an egg and I got sick. Now, it was a conventional egg and not some of the farm fresh eggs that they have here. Cheese. I had the most mucus that I could ever remember having. Bread, even though I pushed myself through that. Let's not take it too far. But I said, my body doesn't like these things. So why would I put them back in my body? To each his own on meat. But the thing that my body loves is grains. The thing that our bodies love are things that come directly from the earth.
All right.
So I'm gonna let this
This is
cook down for a little while. Emmanuel's gonna
uh,
go get you all some people
and
outside
Gia, give
and
me
come back, and it should be done.
All
now.
right, you now.
You're good.
Yes, go for it.
All right. Yeah, we have. It's interesting because since we're live streaming across this other thing, we get this like interesting delay and feedback. We're learning from it. But what I appreciate about what she just did, in addition to just cooking the greens and making the whole entire house aromatic, because the smells and the memories, and I'm listening to her talk through her memories of her life, and then why the health and wellness is so important to Candace. Oren, you still there?
Indeed, sir.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about what Candace just did?
Oh, I mean, I love that, and I think that's again a human characteristic: taking ingredients and adapting them culturally and adapting to your situation. But also, Stephen and Candace talking about greens, and Candace just made the statement about how much she loves greens. In fact, greens are my favorite food as well. And so while we were going through this, I reached under my desk here because I was sorting out stuff to begin seed starts, and came up with 4 varieties. I've got about 8 varieties of collard greens. And so that's
Hold on. Why is that important?
well, because what has happened in the industrialized food system is that they have taken away many of the varieties of food, to go back to Stephen's point, that are part of our memory.
Yeah.
And so one of my quests is to reintroduce these different varieties, and also hope to get folks like you, and I talked to Farmer Fred at Growing Home this morning, to grow some of these other varieties as well, in terms of the marketplace. Why are we selling the same thing Whole Foods sells, right? When we can sell these other varieties and reintroduce people to these different varieties, but also our cultural history.
So this was important also because some of the kids yesterday on the call for the Seeding the Future, the class.
Yeah.
We had a discussion about the importance of colors, also colors, right, with insects, with pollinators, but I we made a comment of like, what colors do you think carrots come in?
Oh,
or what colors do you think corn is? And then when you say that they're all colors, the mouth just drops like, huh?
Right.
And yeah. So when you just mentioned the seeds and the variety, I can't help but appreciate life.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating what's really available. There's a book that came out probably 20 years ago called Fatal Harvest. If people can find a copy of it, I would recommend it, because it demonstrates profoundly how the industrialized food system has disrupted our connection to nature, our connection to the ecosystems, right? So, no, and yeah, seeds. So, I mean, Georgia greens, champion greens. To your point, I even have a variegated variety of collard greens.
Wow.
So, and that's just 3 varieties of, I think I've got 8 varieties here. So.
And you've been doing container gardens, right?
Doing container gardens, and this year we're actually piloting a Victory Garden Reimagined program.
Wow.
focusing on backyards, mostly in Inglewood, West Inglewood, Auburn, Gresham, and we have some new partners now in North Lawndale as well.
Because what I hear from you is excitement for the spring.
Oh, I can't wait.
In the face of all of this COVID.
Right. But
I'm excited.
Also miniaturizing what you're doing. So even trying to figure out going forward how to have small greenhouses or hoop houses in your backyard.
Yep.
So that even at home you can grow. Mama Betty was fussing about how she missed just being able to run out the back door and grab greens or whatever the case may be. So
it's a different type of connection to our existence, reality, and future when you do that. It's just different. Right. I mean, we grew one generation, 2 generations back, that was just the norm. And, when you erase neighborhoods and communities or condition people to move and displace and root shock and all that stuff, it creates holes in our memory, and it creates that's truly distress. But when you heal with this food is medicine, making it, doing it, growing it, cooking it, sharing love, it's a whole different connection to your existence.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. So Victory Garden Reimagined for us is sort of the blending of the kitchen garden, and also thinking about the landscape and what your landscape looks like at your house.
There's a number of good questions coming in the chat. Some of them are like, hey, Oren, can you share seeds? Or can you recap on varieties of those seeds and why it's important? Brittany, I'm going to take you off mute because can you just give a recap of what people are saying in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Amira who asks, how did the discovery of which food healed which illness come into connection? Amir also asks, has there been a study on students focused eating vegetables versus CPS students focused eating processed foods? And then, Amir also asks, can you give the list of green varieties again?
So the one that we can respond to, could you read off the list of the varieties?
Right here, I have Georgia greens, a champion green, and a variegated variety of collard greens.
And while those other questions are important, there's a different way of dealing with research and in an academic way and as a reality way. And so a lot of times when the people put a comparative of, well, if you do a control for CPS kids that eat this and don't eat that, it also is a reductive approach. It doesn't necessarily take into consideration of the holistic aspects of life. So I'm not knocking the questions. It's just that it's a different scope of a type of question that a lot of times, unfortunately, in university settings, they're conditioned to think, oh, I'll just do this and control for the variables and this, that, but it really misses the bigger picture because you cannot, there's so much variability to that. But also, I'll just put this in perspective. 2002, the plan for transformation was 6 years in Chicago when they were tearing down public housing and then building in new housing. But in 2002, people had already been moving and stressed and displaced and replaced and what have you, right? 2002, that puts you 19 years to present date. We've got generations that have grown up with just being uprooted and displaced over and over and over. And then you have police reform and challenges and this, like that. Food is that's not the one thing to look at. That's all I'm going to put it in that frame. Stephen, you still there?
I'm here.
Yeah. So in terms of education and memory, how do we navigate remembering and living like food is medicine and living memories?
I mean, I think they're trying to figure out a way to say this. I'm
careful.
There is something about the modern institution of schooling that I think disposes of living memory.
Ooh, you got to clarify that one. That's heavy. I know exactly what you mean.
So I don't think that the institution of modern schooling has really been about the cultivating of different cultures. And what I mean by that is multiculturalism is actually a way of disposing of. And what I mean by that is multiculturalism is often tied to individual self-construction, tied to individual mobility, and not to a collective self-construction. So elders and ancestors have no relationship to the processes of learning.
In certain frames of analysis.
Right, in certain frames of analysis.
Brittany, you still there, right?
I am still here.
Because you came to us through the Heritage Garden initially, through UIC.
That is correct.
And then when you came in with the spring, summer, over time, how different was your learning experience once you were on site between like what you would be taught about health traditionally versus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How
So
food is in a different way.
I would say it was almost similar starting out, especially in terms of how we approach farming. Well, for us, gardening, because our space was smaller compared to the space that Sweetwater has. But for Sweetwater, I definitely got a deeper understanding and a more hands-on approach. I know I was able to visit when Mama Betty was around, so I did get the chance.
It's a whole different vibe, right?
It definitely is. So to like see her in the kitchen cooking and using the produce from the farm, and then being able to like learn from her as well as eat the food that you not only kind of assisted her with, but learn to make as well. Like you get a totally different experience. And I would say I'm a very oh my goodness, I guess the word experiential person. So I like to do things hands-on. They stick a lot better. But that's another way of creating memories, because you're in there hands-on, and food brings a lot of people together in terms of taste, smell, and the conversations you have. They'll stick with you. Those memories stick with you longer. So I would say my experience was definitely more expounded upon at Sweetwater.
No, definitely. I mean, it just go ahead. Somebody.
No, I don't want to cut you off. What were you going to say, Emmanuel?
Go ahead, Stephen, because I'm going to bring it back to Oren, and then I'm going to reach out to Lily.
Because I'm trying to think about something Oren said and then what Brittany said in terms of her experience. Industrial agriculture sees everything as an object. So last week we talked about the distinction between food and a crop, right? And what I see happening at Sweetwater is it's a subject-subject relationship. Food isn't viewed as simply as an object, but something you have a relationship with, and it has a relationship with you.
Well, I like that framework because it's a relationship between education, it's a relationship between work and labor and art and intergenerational. It's a relationship across time and geography.
So in a sense, then food teaches us. If we understand it as a subject relationship, the land teaches us, right? We have to be open to it to see it, to see the relationship as a subject-subject relationship.
And so, Oren, when Mama Betty is here at the Think Do House and in the kitchen, and she's doing her thing, right? Just gets people excited about the food, but also life. She's also watching and observing, and she's learning, and she's saying, "Hey, something's right or not right. Something else is going on." It's just like it's an anchor in the kitchen that is just watching and understanding and navigating and translating. So one, we miss Mom Betty. You know, we're looking forward to beyond COVID. But if you could talk a little bit more about how important is that to the work that you are talking about introducing into the university? Or yeah, there you go.
Yeah. It's really about food literacy.
Yep.
And you engage that wherever you are in the process. So from our perspective and our household perspective, it starts with producing some of your own food and not just being consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And another aspect of what we're trying to do in terms of backyard gardens and reimagining victory gardening is, in fact, to create households that produce and as well as consume, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it's Candace, it's Mama Betty, it's all these folks. It's like, so now that you've produced this stuff, how do you prepare it, right? And how do you shop for it, even if you still got the consumer aspect? How do you weigh how much money you've saved growing some of your food? So during the summer months, or say between June 15th and the end of October, we spend maybe $15, $20 at the most per week on produce.
Right.
And that's for stuff that we don't grow. We don't grow grapes, right? We don't grow plums. We don't grow peaches. We don't grow those sorts of things. So that's what we spend money on. So we save, and I need to be better about trying to track all that. We save a ton of money just from growing some of our food during the course of the year. But then there's also preservation of the food. It's also collecting seeds. It's doing all of that stuff. And so we really need a food literacy project that covers all those spaces and
right.
and different elements of the food system and how it relates to our household.
So, you know, I'm just doing another little plug of the meeting house. I'm standing right outside of the reconstruction house, right across the street. We got the meeting house. We call it the meeting house because it's a space where we meet. You know, you want to have a gathering, or you want to have a picnic, or you want to get some seedlings in the spring. We had our seedling giveaways that we did with our schools and our residents and neighbors and community that we're gearing up for now. Because you mentioned doing your own gardening, we'll have an abundance of produce and seeds that we have greenhouses, we have hoop houses.
Right.
We're preparing for that. So just to put the word out to everybody that we can get seedlings out. But then that also, what it does, it creates a relationship where people come to our market space. So in the summer, we had a lot of people that came back and said, you know what, the first time, and I've been trying to do it, but COVID put me over the top. I started my own garden. I started doing my savings. I started reaching and connecting with my family, reconnecting with my food. It was actually a blessing to do that at that time during COVID when we needed it more than ever. And so what was nice is it created an expectation for the future. So a lot of people that come by, they look at the meeting house buried in the snow, but they're excited. They're looking for the spring and the summer for that very reason you mentioned, Oren. And Lily, are you still there?
Hi, everybody. I'm here, Emmanuel.
Can I call you out and put you on the spot?
Sure, you already did, I think.
I know. That's what I do that. But can you introduce folks who you are and what does this have to do with the nature of Publix and public trust?
Hi, everybody. So I'm Lily Song. I'm an urban planner who teaches at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. And I met Emmanuel through that Loeb Fellowship connection. I want to also call out Tondi Niamboze, who's also on the call here.
I saw that. Yeah.
She's a second-year master's student who's really interested in food systems, and we work closely. This semester, we're doing some story mapping of food landscapes in the Black Belt South. But to your question about what does this have to do with Publix and reclaiming Publix, everything, just expanding I think there's so much, I don't know, mistrust in the public at this moment. There's histories of public disinvestment and public implication, the public sector's role in creating dual housing markets and devaluing certain neighborhoods and lands. And yet, Publix is like relationships, neighborhood-based activism, these kinds of relational connections and work is so important to, I don't know, restoring meaning to place and really just redefining and expanding what Publix means. And so seeing all your work, it's just like a new paradigm for me of what Publix can be.
It's actively building public trust. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's like there's no reason for a lot of folks, like in this neighborhood, this house, the meeting house, is in the middle of a vacant lot that used to be houses. It was erased. So it's disorienting. It's like forced amnesia. Like, what was there? I can't remember what was there. To have to live in those conditions, and they're reiterated. And then, Oren, you mentioned like aesthetics of oppression. It's like, if I got the board ups, I got the X's on the walls, I got this, it sends these subliminal messages and signals, which we are receiving and internalizing in our bodies, in our memories, in our muscle memories, as I'm walking and I'm losing hope and apathy. But when we all collectively introduce the garden into food and the sunflowers and others, it changes the landscape. It changes the energy. It changes the feel. It changes. People come up and say, "What's happening here?" And then a lot of people say, "Why is it happening?" We say, "Why not? Why wouldn't it happen here?" And then once we have that, and Ora, you've been involved in some of those conversations. When we start to have that dialogue, and then people can understand that there's a relationship, there's a foundation for the relationship. That's when the real kind of activation and remembering happens. Right?
That relational aspect seems so key, because that Publix, it's not like representative government, but it's just right there, and people in the neighborhood creating that, which is the public. And the other thing that you provoked, like my thinking about trust, is it's not just like a moral or ethical thing, which is really important, but it seems like, trust is in like taking care of things for future generations, like holding it in trust or as a trust. And it seems it's like a physical manifestation of that, which is so powerful. I'll stop here.
No, that's great. I'm gonna open it up wider before I go back into the house, because there's a loop that happens with the delay. I just want to make sure are there any other key points or questions? Because I was just calling on folks that we know, but there's a lot of people in here that do not know. We don't know you, but we're welcoming you to the conversation. And I just got the text message that the food is ready, so I definitely want to go back in soon. Is there anybody else? Let's see. I'm looking. Warren or Steven, you know anybody? And then I might call somebody out like Tandi or Victoria.
Hi, everyone. I'll just say something really quickly. I'm Tandi. As Lily mentioned, I'm studying urban planning at Harvard, and I just wanted to say how truly inspiring it is to see this sort of precedent be set. I've done a lot of work exploring urban food systems internationally and in New York, but I think this is one of the most exciting examples and sustainable examples that I've come across of this sort of work in the US. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Well, thank you for being put on the spot. And yeah. Brittany, say that. You just said in the chat that was important.
Oh, I was saying to touch upon what Lily was saying about trust, how it's key, especially when engaging in communities that have experienced so much trauma and erasure. And we talk a lot about trauma and erasure during our fellowship. And we actually experience it on site when going through some of these workshops from space to space. I know Emmanuel and Courtney got a couple of videos and pictures of houses that were just a few blocks down or right behind the reconstruction house being destroyed right there in the process. And you just hear the damage and you feel the erasure or you see the erasure. And it's like, that is trauma. And you're just seeing the community or the space in which you've grown or been raised in being neglected and being erased all at once as if you're not cared for. So if you enter these spaces or these communities, you want to come with like an open hand and wanting to build trust because they already have a lot of distrust in the system.
So we're ready to join back inside of the house. I'm queuing you up. I cannot stress how wild the smell and the aroma is. It's exciting.
So we're back and we're pretty much done. Look, this is a quick weeknight meal that you can make on a Sunday when it's nice and cold, or a Monday when you're still snowed in your house. So you want the greens to cook down a little. Now, I am not a fan. Is this camera on? I am not a fan of my greens losing all of their color. I don't want them to be mushy. I don't want them to be totally overcooked. So these greens have, you can tell they've been cooked, but not overcooked. So you get some of the color from the greens and from the root. Now, what I like to usually do with mine is add a little okra to it, but we don't have any. It's not in season. Cook what's in season. It's better for you that way. So, oh, I'm sorry. So, you want to cook what's in season. So, here's what it's going to look like in the bowl for you guys. So, some people eat it with rice. I don't because, and usually I'm too impatient to eat it with rice. But some of my favorite stuff. So, let me get a fork. And does anybody else want some? You want me to share it? Okay.
Yes. Candace, while we're doing this, I appreciate you. And then we talk about how, well, when I was outside, my hands are freezing. We talk about how important it is the sharing, the act of sharing food is an expression of love, care, you know, but also public trust.
It is.
I'm gonna put you on the spot because you technically deal with the whole public political world that we have no.
I do.
We have no reason to trust.
I do. I do.
Your presence here and your repeated presence here has gotten us to trust.
But it's different, right? So
it's very different.
Let's talk about a little bit about the woman I work for, Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor.
Let's please talk about it.
So Alderwoman Taylor is not your average elected official.
At all.
Okay. Not only was she a hunger striker to save Dyer High School, but also like she's a woman that has 5 kids, kid at 15 that believes in the people in the ward. Let me say that again.
And she does.
And she does. We had a meeting today with a developer who wants to put something in Woodlawn, and she's like, families can't afford that. Income rate, and she's like, families can't afford that. We need affordable housing in Woodlawn. We need affordable housing in Washington Park. And no, I'm not going to sign off on this until my constituents vote on this.
And the reason why I'm saying it is like we're a 501c3, and be clear, I'm not about political advocacy at all. I'm in the game of public trust building. That's just facts. It's like we want to do better for our future, for our generations. I'm not advocating for one person or the other, but I will say She showed up.
Well,
She showed up and repeatedly showed up.
public trust and public voice go right hand in hand. You're going to trust the person that listens to your voice. So I'm not going to trust the neighbor that I tell I don't like onions and they keep putting onions in the food. I'm not going to trust them. But I am going to trust the neighbor that says, I made a special portion for you that doesn't have onions in it.
Like this. And then that savory goodness that comes in and warms my hands and my soul, I'm going to trust, you trust that I'm going to trust you.
That's a trust that we need to build across communities, between communities, and between generations. They were talking a little bit about that memory, right? That memory that you feel in your bones. My family, my dad's side is ethnically Garifuna, and when you eat certain things, you feel that warmth of other sons. You feel where you came from, and you can feel where somebody else came from. And it's amazing, and it connects you. It connects you to your past, it connects you to the soil, and it connects you to the people.
Now, I'm going to say this. I've been to New Orleans. You brought me back. I
tried.
I went right, I took the little, I went off camera, went over there, I took a little, I went right back.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also interesting because I now have another memory of some foods that I had in South Africa. I had some foods by some other folks, like Mama Betty has a remix of this also, that she's from Alabama, she's from that arc. And then she's done stuff in the kitchen here, so I have like this like real crazy, I'm rethinking my geography just by eating this food.
So I was having a discussion about what I'm making at home tonight. And I said I was going to make some Belizean food for me, because that's what I like.
Absolutely.
I was going to make some hadut. Hadut is like mofongo, like fufu. It's all related. You know, we like to forget that our ancestors came from the same continent and we just got dropped in different places. So the food in Louisiana, the food in Alabama, the food in Haiti, the food in Belize, the food in Brazil, it's all going to be related, and they're cousins that can kiss each other.
So I'm going to try, ooh, I like that. So I'm going to try agroecology from the diaspora lens, or Oren, either one. Oren, both of you. Stephen Haynes, can you talk about that agroecology from the diaspora lens, or Oren, either one?
Yeah, the sound is kind of coming in and out.
I know we got a little bit of a delay, but go ahead. So it was
What
the
was
question was
Okay.
agroecology, and what does it mean to the this diaspora of food, the larger lens of food and memory and healing.
Well, you know, there's a macro piece to that as well. And most people don't know because we're so gaslit and so propagandized and so focused on nonsense. But the UN estimates that if the current practices in the agricultural system continues, that there's only about 60 years of topsoil left. And so from an agroecological perspective or regenerative perspective, we have to change our practices for everything. There's some physicians, we were talking about food as medicine to start this off, that are suggesting that farmers that grow in systems from an agroecological or regenerative perspective will be the healers of choice, because they will be presenting us with methods that protect the soil, but also provide high quality food, which produce optimal results in terms of performance and everyday performance. So that has to become the standard, if you will, if we are to protect the soil and therefore protect life. Soil happens to be the most important, in my mind at any rate, the most important resource that we have. And there's that slogan that says, soil, not oil. And so we need to get on the program if we're to be around for a while.
Stephen, agroecology, Afroecology, what's up?
Give me one second. Okay, I'll come back to that. I just had something going on right now.
I got you. Actually, opening it up to everybody. Who else is on here?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, we were talking about as we widen the lens, right? So Oren just mentioned about the importance of soil, and we got, you know, the degradation of our topsoil is so disastrous, but we don't think about it. What's happening to the Great Lakes and the spill off and the toxins that go into the lakes, and 20% of our Great Lakes is the fresh water source. How does this help us change our lens for agroecology and like live food as medicine, but also I'll be part of the dialogue now. Agroecology, food as medicine, but also just like creating a new normal.
Emmanuel, on behalf of everybody on here, I want to ask the question, will we be sharing the recipe?
Yes. I was just queuing up feedback from Brittany, then Stephen, and we're coming back to the recipe right next.
So the best way, or that I can understand and approach this, is I would say with working on trusting ourselves and our abilities, but understanding that there's different avenues and pathways in which we can approach this, but also realizing what's going on within your community and neighborhood. So I guess educating yourself or keeping yourself up to date with what's happening in your neighborhood in order to expand upon what's happening, I guess, statewide or even globally at that point to even expand upon agro. But everything that Sweetwater is doing is expounding upon agro. You said agro.
Ecology.
Yep. Yeah, agroecology. So when we talk about water, when we talk about soil, when we talk about food apartheids, erasure of neighborhoods and trust, everything that we're doing on this site is to help build upon that. When we have the meeting house for seedling distribution or even farmers markets, and we're offering it at donation because we know what limited access the community has available to it. And it's not like, well, this is how much it should cost. And though you can't afford it, well, that sounds like a personal problem. It's like, how many people are you feeding and what can you give? Because we're here as a resource.
We need you to get your master's and shift the system a little bit further, because you sound like the well-versed neighborhood docent and advocate of the work.
Yes.
You going to get your master's, right? You trying to get your master's, huh?
Yes, I am. I mean, so long as USC accepts me, yes, I am getting that master's.
Okay, we're gonna put some pressure on them, right, Oren?
Absolutely.
Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the question of agroecology, but then with that, the idea of Afroecology. And while we're talking about a relationship with the soil, a healthy relationship with the soil, perhaps also thinking about the relationship with the soil through the living memories of African descended peoples, right? So it's not just about it's not just about the soil, but it's about a particular kind of relationship to the soil that is tied and linked to our living memories and relationships.
It is extremely appropriate. Amira also said that we need a deeper understanding of systemic reasoning, why the distance and disconnect was created. Us bringing us back to self-healing, self-awareness, and self-survival. We're finally getting back to who we are, becoming. So for us, this food is medicine and living memories is an act of becoming. Kind of reflecting, reaching back to be present, to move forward. And right now we're gonna move forward to that recipe.
So the recipe will be linked on the website. So it'll be right on there. It's pretty easy. Remember, the key to this is the peanut and grains. And always use an odd number of grains. I know. Remember, New Orleans, this is a peanut butter roux, but it actually works with the flavor profile. And always use an odd number of grains. I know it's some New Orleans mystique, but it actually works with the flavor profile and components. So that's about it for me. Enjoy, stay warm, love your body, love each other, and love food.
That's it.